Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping. I'm Tyler, your host, and in this video, we're going to take a walk on the beach and talk about our emergency mindset.
Our mental preparedness is at least as important as our physical preparedness, and there are a lot of aspects that we can look at to our mentalities as preppers. Today, we're looking at some things we can do to avoid becoming a victim to extreme circumstances. These circumstances might be something like wilderness survival or a public emergency like a disaster or an economic collapse. When we find ourselves in extreme, challenging circumstances, we often react with caution, and this makes sense as an instinct because when it comes down to it, we evolved from prey animals. We don't have a lot of natural weapons or toughness, and so it makes sense that we use caution to gain the time to use our big brains to come up with a rational response to the situation. Our brains take up 20% of our resting body's energy, and this is pretty unallowable evolutionarily speaking unless there's a good outcome from having that trait. And in our case, we use our brains to be able to extrapolate, remember, and think rationally about situations. And this gives us abilities that other animals like us don't. It's what really classifies us as more than just slow, weak primates. One of the best things that we can do in an emergency situation is to stay calm, observant, and rational. But it's very possible to lean too far into this instinct for cautiousness. We can become a victim to the circumstances if we don't allow ourselves to adapt to them and overcome. This brings me to a little saying or mantra that has stuck with me for a while, and that is adapt, overcome, excel. This is more than just a corny saying to me. This is a raw process that can be applied to any part of life, whether that's a promotion at work or going to a new school or college or an actual emergency like a natural disaster or something like that. There are ways that you can adapt yourself and your thinking and the way that you do things to better overcome the challenges that you face and excel in your new circumstances. We often talk about survival here in the prepping community, but what we really need to think of it as is thriving. We need to do more than just get by or subsist, because that's not truly living for one thing. And for another, it's quite likely that as crises move on, we'll face more and more challenges. And so we need to become masters of our circumstances at each step of the way and be prepared for more to come. This brings me to a fictional metaphor that I often think about. Now, I know some of you old dogs would probably scoff at the idea of using fiction to make metaphors for real life, and I sort of agree. I don't think that we should use someone else's probably flawed imagination to inform our opinions of what the future may be like. But often, the ways that we disagree with their opinions or the metaphors that they give us to think about the real world can be a valuable source of inspiration for the real world. With that in mind, I want to share some thoughts that I've sometimes gotten from the Walking Dead television series. Near the beginning of this series, they're very fearful of the zombies that they have to encounter, and so they try to keep them as isolated from themselves as possible, often going to great extremes to avoid the dead. Later on in the series, through mastery of their circumstances and the gaining of skills and confidence, they do a lot of things that they never would have considered possible, with single people taking on large hordes of zombies that even large groups never would have considered encountering before. This is far more than just them beating the learning curve and gaining skills and confidence. This is them taking a mastery of their situation and realizing that the things that they thought were impossible before are now quite simple because they've come out of their victim mindset and used the skills and the comfort that they have with those skills to inform their abilities and teach themselves what they're capable of. And we see them face multiple challenges that would have crippled them before, but which they face with confidence, not only because of their newfound skills, but because of their confidence in their ability to face new challenges. And this is the mindset that I think that we need. Now, moving on from the fictional metaphor part, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a leeway into realizing that there are a lot of situations that we might find ourselves in, which, aside from needing to inform ourselves about those circumstances and the nuances of them, we can face new challenges with a mindset of being prepared to overcome challenges. Essentially, what I'm suggesting is that there is a skill to overcoming new adversity. Now, I won't say that I'm any more of authority in this skill than anyone else, but I do think that it's one of the most valuable things that we as preppers can try to hone. The ability to have a mindset of being prepared to face new challenges with our best foot forward.
Well, I hope that gave you some food for thought, and if it did, leave those thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned with Let's Talk About Prepping for future videos. Stay safe out there, everyone.